All right, let's turn to New York now, where some Democrats in Albany grumbling over the midterm election losses in the state Senate. New York Republicans now have control, and the shakeup could threaten some measures that Democrats were hoping to pass. With nearly 1.8 million New Yorkers earning minimum wage or just above, Senator Gillibrand hoping to pass the Fair Minimum Wage Act, which would increase the federal minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $10.10 an hour over the next 3 years. Close to home, Democrats in New York, they've also been taking a strong stance when it comes to hydrofracking, and charter school advocates, they're looking for help from Governor Cuomo. They want to see that funding expanded, and some Dems in Albany have mixed feelings towards the governor following his support or lack thereof when it comes to the midterms. And let's get into that first off. There was a sense in the midterms to get the Working Families Party to put him on the ballot here, that he was making assurance that he'd be a good soldier and he'd go out there and he'd campaign for the progressives. More than that, I know we talked to Congressman Israel, who had the unenviable job of running the DCCC, that he was going to be there even for Democrats running for Congress. Short story, obviously Democrats lost a seat in the state Senate, and 3 Democrats are now not going to go back to Washington in January, who lost their House seats. Israel made it clear the governor never delivered. A lot of Democrats said, I heard the words here, he never showed up. And now you got this supposed backroom deal on Long Island where Skelos and the governor said, all right, you don't come around here, you don't mess with my guys, I won't mess with you. There is not just the perception, there's the reality that Democrats think the governor could have done more.
Well, I'm not in that boat. I'm not in that boat. First place, I was focused on 2 Democratic races. Senator Latimer, which was a tough race. It didn't need to be a tough race, but the Republicans poured money in, and I represent East Yonkers with him. We worked tirelessly. We had a fabulous rally with the governor and lieutenant governor. Huge enthusiasm. The governor came across very loud and strong for Senator Latimer, and we won. Justin Wagner I worked on. The governor endorsed him. Unfortunately, it was a very close race. We didn't win. You know, in the races I was involved with, the governor was here in the Hudson Valley and put his message and his enthusiasm.
I know you're right on both camps, but you've heard that grumbling, right?
Of course I hear the grumbling. You know, you hear all grumbling. But the fact is, this was a tough year. This was a tough year for all Democrats, including the governor, frankly. He won. He had a tougher time than he thought. I know in my district, I'm just looking at the numbers, the governor was pretty much even with Rob Astorino in my district in East Yonkers in Westchester. This was not an easy time for him to coast along and have all these coattails. He was fighting honestly, a tough opponent.
One more political, because I want to get to the policy stuff, which I'm sure the people at home are more interested in. On the political front, down deep, both, I'll ask you the question first, is the governor happier that the status quo in effect prevailed, that there's 3 groups in the room?
Of course.
So he'd rather that the Republicans kept the state Senate, forget what he had said earlier.
Of course. No offense to my Democratic friends, no offense, but on the far left of some of the Looney Tune ideas that they want to go forward with would never fly in the state. And if you're a governor with ambition towards Washington, that's the last thing in the world that you need. So you want to stay down the middle, as this governor has done. Frankly, his battles with the far left may have a benefit in terms of it looks good more to the moderates.
But here was the whole idea. Jeff Klein was going to come along. Remember all the promises that the IDC, they were going to caucus with the Democrats? I must have missed the official change of heart. He's now going to be caucusing with the Republicans.
Well, I don't. We'll wait to see. But I have to.
You want to take a bet?
Dispute. I have to dispute my friend here. I believe the Senate Democrats, under the leadership of Senator Stewart Cousins, would have been extremely moderate. I mean, I share a district with her. I know her well. They were not going to do the things that would cause them to have a complete, break from a middle-of-the-road program.
I was talking about the ideas, no offense, more from the Assembly.
Okay, but Senate Democrats, had they been in charge, would have gone a middle
They knew
path.
the math, right.
And they have all these members they have to bring along from more conservative places in New York City. So I think, I think the governor would have done very well with a Senate Democratic majority. That's not to be the case. Now we got to figure out how to do the things that we want to do.
Let's go through them real quick. Minimum wage, you think it's going to happen still?
I think if the governor decides that this is something he must have, and I hope he does, then he leans on the Republican Senate to say, let's find a way to do this. And let's find a way to get municipalities like New York City and Yonkers the opportunity to enact a higher minimum wage, which is something that as a policy matter I think is very important. He was opposed, then he became less opposed. Now I think is an opportunity for him to say to the Senate Republicans, this is something we need to do.
Everybody
Everybody wants
he said
it.
that was his big thing.
Everybody
now,
wants, except the
I'll
small
admit it,
business
I'm
community.
conflicted on this one, maybe more than some others that usually are on the table on the subject of hydrofracking, okay? I've heard the compelling arguments on both sides, but I won't even put you on the spot. I'll say it's been 2.5 years. The governor should make up his mind. Either he's for it or against it. I mean, he owes that much to the electorate here. One way or the other, you have the pulse of Albany better than we do. Are there enough votes to make this thing happen? Or is it going to really be, if the governor wants it, he can make it happen. If he doesn't want it, it's going to die?
Well, I don't think it's solely the governor's really game in town. I mean, in the assembly, there's a tremendous feeling that we should have a moratorium, at least, at the minimum, a moratorium, which is what we passed in our House. They didn't pass in the Senate. And I think you have members, particularly members from a lot of those regions, Democratic members, and probably some Republicans, who really don't want it. So if he makes up his mind, and it's something that the legislature feels is unacceptable, I think there could be pushback. So I wouldn't say it's just the governor's decision. We really have a system where the legislature is going to weigh in, and there's a lot of opposition to fracking. Opposition as well as moratorium.
Okay. On the military pensions
Yes.
for New York, you voted for it.
Co-sponsored.
Co-sponsored, excuse me, and there was a lot of support for it. The governor, who went to Afghanistan, and I remember, I think I was arguing with you, I defended the governor. There was more than just a photo op that he went there during the campaign season, turned around, and he vetoed it. How mad were you when the veto came down?
Well, I always knew there was a risk of veto, and I've worked very hard on this bill. I have a number of police officers and firefighters in the city of Yonkers who would benefit by this. And they are very proud ex-Marines and other ex-service members who then came into being police and firefighters. And I worked with them to make the case, and I encouraged them to call the governor's office. I always knew there was a risk because I knew the cost, as at least the city of New York would say the cost was prohibitive. What did upset me was almost less than the governor vetoed than the tone of the veto message, which is unfortunately snide and political. If you want to make the argument this costs money, it should have been done in the context of the budget, which ultimately was his argument, and I think we should go back and do it in the budget and pay for it and do that, fine. But to take a shot at people who voted for this in good faith, I thought that was inappropriate, and I fault the governor's office for that strongly. We should go back. We can fix this. It should be in the budget. We should get it done.
And you're not the only one. It didn't sound right the way that he said no to it. And it didn't sound right and look right given the optics of just a month or so before the election of what we saw in Afghanistan. Okay, we're going to jump to a quick commercial break here. When we come back, we're going to talk Hillary here, who, by the way, could make her campaign headquarters very close to where we're coming to you live from tonight here. That and much more. Plus, an angry Nancy Pelosi. Did she have a point when she blasted a room full of reporters when they asked her if it was time maybe that she stepped down? We'll play the clip and get Table's take as well.